Hello, Mind Body Masters, and welcome to episode number 18 of the podcast. Now, today's episode is titled, Is Your Pain Physical or Emotional? And if you've ever wondered what's the difference between physical pain and pain caused by unresolved stress and emotional baggage, this episode is for you. I'm going to be taking you through a checklist to determine, or so you can see and self-diagnose if your pain is in fact physical pain or if there is a stress and emotional baggage component. So be sure to stay tuned so you can figure it out. Hi, I'm Jay Curry. As a former chiropractor, I realised that people's physical symptoms started in their mind and not in their body, which is why I now teach people how to heal themselves from the inside out. Now, you don't need to be a monk or a mystic to heal yourself. You just need to learn how to master your mind-body connection. And this podcast is going to show you how. You're going to learn how to understand the hidden meaning of your symptoms, resolve the old emotional baggage that's kept you stuck, and gain practical tools to reduce the stress in your life. This is going to give you the ability to heal not only physically, but also spiritually. And this comes with a dangerous level of freedom. So let's help you become a mind-body master. All right, welcome back to the podcast. Now, today's podcast episode was the result of a conversation that I had this week with a friend. They came to me needing some help with a particular injury, a particular pain that they'd experienced, and they wanted my take on it. And basically, according to what they experienced and according to how this thing presented, I said to them, hey, it sounds like it is entirely emotional. It sounds like there is a massive stress link here, and I think nothing's going to change until you start to deal with the stress and the emotional baggage. And they basically said, oh, that can't be. My pain is physical. It's not emotional. So this is such a common belief. It's such a common way of thinking. And it's actually a thing that keeps so many people stuck in pain, and it keeps people trapped looking for solutions that never, ever deliver. Because here's the thing, right? If you've got a physical pain, but there's an emotional cause, there's a stress cause, it's caused by some old event that you experienced in your life, no amount of physical therapy, no amount of adjustments, no amount of massage, no amount of acupuncture, no amount of diets and supplements is going to help you heal. Nothing is going to change until you actually identify and deal with that root emotional cause. And so I just wanted to bring that up and say that, yes, some pain can be physical, but when it's emotional, this is when you really need to start doing the inner work. So in today's episode, I'm going to take you through a series of checklists which I've created to help you identify for yourself, to help you to self-diagnose, if you will, whether your pain has a physical cause or an emotional cause. So firstly, let's just look at that belief. And this is such a common belief that my pain is only physical. It can't be emotional. And I completely get that. This is where I operated for most of my life. I believed that all of the pain that I experienced, because I felt it physically, because it hurt, because I could see the inflammation and feel the pain. I was like, well, how can that start in my mind? How can that be the result of stress? How can that be the result of old emotional baggage that I've been holding on to? And this belief, thinking that my pain couldn't possibly have a stress link or couldn't possibly be caused by emotional issues, was the very thing that kept me stuck in pain for years and years. You see, because I didn't want to believe that. I didn't want to believe that my pain could be the result of the stress in my life. And so instead, I decided, instead of dealing with that, instead of looking at that, which, by the way, can be a bit uncomfortable, can be a bit confronting, and not everyone likes to look and deal with the stress in their life. It's so much easier just to think it's purely physical and treat it like a physical injury. But when you just go down that path, this is where you get stuck, because if you're ignoring the stress, you're ignoring the emotional baggage, and that is the root cause, well, then nothing's going to change. And the reason I share this episode with you is in the hope that you start to recognize that, hey, maybe the pain that I'm experiencing, maybe this regular flare-up of stuff that I'm getting, maybe it does have a stress cause, maybe it has an emotional cause. And hopefully to get you off that treadmill of trying to find the solution in the next therapy, the next massage, the next treatment, and start to look inside, start to look at the emotional baggage, start to look at the stress in your life, because I want to save you some of the time that I experienced. Instead of spending years and years trying to find the solution, is start looking inside. So that's what we're here to do today. So if that sounds like you, great. If it sounds like someone you know that maybe you've recognized that their pain, someone you care about, someone you love, maybe their pain does have a stress link, does have some old emotional baggage tied to it, share this episode with them, because this might be the thing that allows them to see the truth of where their pain comes from and puts them on the path to healing. So without any further ado, I'm going to get stuck right into it. So one of the first things that I would say in terms of, is your pain physical or is it emotional, is, did it have a clear cause, right? So what do I mean by that? Is, imagine you get hit by a bus. I use this example all the time with my students. It's a very graphic image, and touch wood that you never have to get hit by a bus, or I don't have to get hit by a bus. But if you had a physical trauma like that and you broke your leg, there is no emotional cause there, right? There's no underlying conflict. There's no underlying stress that caused that. This is the result of a physical injury. And this is where I played, is I realized that a lot of my injuries that I had throughout my life started from a physical thing, right? It might have been from playing a sport or running or getting tackled wrong in football. So the first thing is, if there was a physical injury, there's a normal healing time for muscles and bones. So say you tear a muscle. If you tear a muscle, the normal healing time for that particular thing, and this, if it did start from a physical thing, the normal healing time for a muscle is about 4 to 6 weeks. If you broke a bone, the normal healing time for that is a little bit longer, around maybe 8 to 10, 8 to 12, right, max. And so the number one way to tell if the injury or pain that you're experiencing is emotional is if it did start with a physical injury, but it's taking way longer to heal. So if you've torn a muscle and it's taking longer than 4 weeks, maybe it's gone on for months and months, or maybe you've got some kind of injury that you've had for years, even though it might have started with a physical injury, the fact that you're still in pain, the fact that you're still experiencing symptoms, tells me that there's also an emotional link, there's also a stress link there, and nothing's going to change until you deal with that. So I hear so often that people will say, oh yeah, I hurt my back 30 years ago because of this injury that I had. And I'm like, great, well, that's all well and good. But given the amount of time that you've experienced that, surely by now you think your body would have been able to heal that. So that's number one. If your injury started from a physical knock, bump, fall, trauma, but it is taking far longer to heal, this is a sure sign that there is a underlying stress, underlying emotional cause to your pain. And this was me for so many years. A lot of my injuries started there, but they just never got better. And this is until I started doing the inner work, until I started to look at what was going on in my mind, did those injuries start to change? So that's number one. Okay, so number two, this is probably one of the most important. I probably should have had this one at number one, but hey, it's at number two and it's equally as important. So the second way to determine if the pain you're experiencing has an emotional stress cause is if nothing has worked. Okay, so if there was a physical injury and the pain that you're experiencing was the result of some kind of physical trauma, chances are you would have been to various therapists. You would have been to chiros, osteos, physios, massage therapists, acupuncturists, whatever. Chances are, if it was physical, one of those things would have provided you with relief, right? So when I was a chiropractor, chiropractic is fantastic at dealing with the physical component of injuries, and there'd be patients that I'd have that would get better almost immediately. And this was a good sign that there was no underlying stress, there was no emotional cause of their symptoms. But there was also patients that would go through the same treatment process and protocols that after months would still be not getting better. So when nothing has worked for you, even though you've tried everything, this is one of the hallmark signs that you have an unresolved emotional stressor and that there is an emotional issue to your pain. And the reason why I say this is because chances are, if you've had the belief that my pain is physical and not emotional, you would have tried all of the normal, traditional, physical ways of healing. And one of the things that you would have ignored is understanding the connection between your mind and the body, understanding how your emotions and stress impact your body. And so once you've recognized that nothing's worked for you, or that you've continued to try things and not get results. That's the other side of this is, sure, nothing might have worked, or nothing might have worked for long. So I know a lot of people that are reliant or dependent on various therapists. They need to go and see them every couple of weeks just to keep the pain at bay. So if you're someone that nothing has worked for you, or you've become quite reliant on a particular therapist or process or treatment to keep the pain at bay, that is a very, very good sign that there is an underlying emotional stress. And the thing I'd say to you is, with that in mind, is once you actually start to recognize this, you can start to break that cycle. You can start to finally find something that's worked for you, and you can start to loosen the dependency on various treatments and processes to help you heal. So that's number 2. Now, number 3, and I'm sure a lot of you guys who have experienced pain can relate to this one. This was massive for me. Number 3 is that your pain flares up regularly, and it comes back in a similar fashion. So for me, one of my most chronic injuries was a lower back complaint. So I had this from the time I was about 15 or so. And this pain pattern would flare up 3, 4, 5 times a year in exactly the same fashion. It was almost like clockwork. It would come back in the same way. I'd feel debilitated in the same capacity for a similar amount of time all throughout the year. And so this is a good sign that there is an emotional component to that. And why is that so? Well, when you go through some unexpected and emotionally distressing event, it causes your body to adapt. And often these adaptations can be pain. And what occurs is, if you haven't resolved or dealt with that original stressful event, anytime that you're reminded of it unconsciously, anytime that you're reminded of that event in your day-to-day life, it causes your symptoms to reactivate. So let's just say you had a bad breakup. You went through a really tricky and sticky situation where you went through a really stressful breakup with a particular partner. And let's say that stressful event caused your back to respond and caused the tissues in your back to break down. And as a result, you develop some back pain after that. Now, let's just say that 3 times a year, you still need to be in contact with this ex-partner, right? Or maybe you've got children together and you need to still maintain contact. And so every time you're reminded of this person, maybe you work together, maybe you have children together, every time you're reminded of this person or the situation of when you went through that bad breakup, that would cause your pain to flare up. So flare-ups in pain are really easy to deal with. They're really easy to manage. Once you identify what the root emotional cause was, what the root stressor was, because then you can start to see the things in your day-to-day life that cause the pain to flare up. And when that's the case, you no longer get triggered by events in your life. Learning how to master your emotions and master your mind can help you to no longer feel triggered and reactive to particular situations in your day-to-day life. And when that's the case, your body no longer needs to adapt. It no longer needs to flare up. So that's number 3. Does your pain flare up regularly? Does it come back again and again? And does it come back in a similar fashion? So number 4 is your pain worse in the morning or of an evening? So with the body, there's 2 phases of the nervous system. There is the sympathetic nervous system, which is that fight-flight nervous system. And you got the parasympathetic, which is that calming, restful, healing side of the nervous system. Now think of it like this. During the stress phase, the muscles and tissues in your body, when under particular types of emotional stress, cause the tissues to have these micro tears. Now, this is exactly the same as what we experience during exercise. So imagine doing a really intense weights workout. That is a stress on your body, and it causes these muscle fibers to break down. Now, when you're actually doing the workout, you typically don't get pain. You get the pain usually a day later or 2 days later when you're resting and recovering. And the pain occurs as part of a healing symptom. So the pain is the result of those muscle fibers rebuilding and repairing and getting stronger. Now, this occurs when our nervous system is relaxed. Pain occurs when our body is healing. And the time during the day when our body is healing the most is overnight. So overnight when you're sleeping, you enter a deep state of parasympathetic activity, a deep restful state. And so this is when your muscles and joints go into repair. And this is when you experience pain. So this is a sure sign. So if you get pain and it's worse in the morning and then it gradually gets better throughout the day, and then the next morning you're back to square one, that is a sure sign that there is some kind of underlying emotional conflict, underlying stressor that is contributing, or more to the point, causing your pain. And so this was me for so many years. I would wake up every morning with that back pain that I was talking about. That would be excruciating in the morning. And then once I went about my day, it got better. So that's a really key thing to look at. Okay, so that's number 4. Now, number 5, this is a really interesting one, is your pain will increase after periods of stress in your life. So you might have noticed the links to, let's say, when things get really stressful at work, you might notice your pain flares up. Or when you have a particular fight with your parents or your neighbor or a friend, that is going to be what is causing the pain to flare up. So during these periods of stressful times, that's when the symptoms become reactivated. And so this is a really clear link. It's the more stressed you are, the more pain you're experiencing. If that's the case for you, there's not a physical link there. There is a stress link. That is one of the most easy ones to understand for people, is my pain is worse after I've been stressed, or my pain is worse if I'm really strung out or in that really fight-flight mode. If that's you, this is a really good sign that there is some kind of underlying emotional link there to your pain. All right, number 6. So this is a really interesting one. So the type of conflict theme that causes pain, as by understanding the science of German medicine, is caused by what we call a self-devaluation conflict. So a self-devaluation conflict is exactly what it sounds like, devaluing oneself. So essentially beating yourself up, being hard on yourself, blaming yourself, living with an internal critic in your brain. So number 6 here is, do you live with constant self-devaluation? Do you beat yourself up? Are you hard on yourself? And if that's the case, it's almost certain that the pain that you're experiencing is linked to what's going on in your mind. So how does self-devaluation play out? So thinking you're not good enough, thinking you're not worthy enough. And so there's a few subtle ways that this can play out. The most obvious is just being really hard on yourself, having a really internal harsh critic in your brain, putting you down all day, every day. This is a really the most easy way to see it, but there's some more subtle ones, like always pushing yourself, always driving to succeed, not being able to slow down, not being able to relax, having really poor boundaries with other people, not being able to say what you feel and say what you mean because you're worried about upsetting other people, or perhaps constantly sacrificing your own needs to try and make everyone else around you feel okay and feel comfortable. So these are some internal ways, if you like, to determine if your pain does have an emotional stress cause. And this is the key with pain, is nothing is going to help or help your pain shift at the physical level until you really deal with that, until you transform that inner critic into an inner ally, an inner friend, if you like, and learning how to understand yourself, learning how to transform yourself from the inside out so that you no longer live with self-devaluation. Because when you're not beating yourself up any longer, when you're not being harsh on yourself, your body no longer needs to respond. So that's number 7. Number six, is that if you feel like you devalue yourself. So if you, like I said, if you're hard on yourself or if you blame yourself, this is a telltale sign that the pain that you're experiencing is stress related, is emotion related, and is created in the mind. Because one of the things that I know is when you heal the mind, the body will follow. And this is a key part of it. And lastly here, so number 7, you've seen doctors, you've seen other therapists, and they're all stumped. They're all confused. You might have heard things like, oh, I don't understand why you're not better by now. You should be experiencing results. You should be seeing improvements by now. There's something really interesting about your case. I've never seen this before. I'm quite baffled as to why you're still in pain. Or perhaps you've even been told the opposite. Oh, well, it seems as though you're just going to have to live with this. It seems as though you're just going to have to learn how to manage this. If you've been told anything like that, or you've heard those words from doctors and experts, that is one of the key ways to determine that your pain does in fact have an emotional cause, is in fact caused by stress and old emotional baggage that you're holding on to. And the reason being, and this is nothing against the medical system, but the medical system when it comes to dealing with people in pain is completely broken. Completely and utterly broken. And I say that with all kindness, is don't get me wrong, if I'm ever injured or if I'm ever in need of help, the first place that I'm going to be going to is the hospital. Modern medicine is fantastic at emergency care, but when it comes to helping people with chronic pain or regular pain or unexplained pain, well then they just fall short, because the reason that they fall short is because they only look at the physical element of pain. And as a chiropractor, this is how I was trained. I was taught that pain is only physical, it can't be emotional, and so as a result, it's a physical problem. It must have a physical solution. It must be because of the alignment or the posture or the muscle balance or muscle tightness. And this is why so many people struggle with pain, is because they ignore the fact that their pain can be caused by stress, can be caused by emotional baggage in their life, and they just continually pursue trying to find a physical solution to an emotional problem. And this is why so many people remain stuck. I think it's like 1 in 5 people in the US alone live with chronic pain, and that number only increases to 1 in 3 people as they get over the age of 65. So clearly something's not working. And the traditional way of dealing with pain is, like I said, completely broken. So that's the last point. If you've been to all kinds of doctors and specialists and chiros and osteos and physios, and they're all baffled as to why you're still in pain, the reason they're baffled is because they're not looking for the emotional cause. They're only looking for the physical, and this is why you're still struggling. So there you have it. There is 7 ways in which you can self-diagnose to determine if your pain is physical or if it is in fact emotional. So if you have answered yes to one or more of those, because they're all pretty definitive, I'll just recap them quickly. So number 1 was things are taking way longer to heal. Maybe you have a muscle tear that's taken 6 months instead of 6 weeks to heal. Or perhaps you're still in pain even after trying all kinds of therapies, treatments, supplements, doctor's visits, all kinds of things, and nothing has worked for you. Or nothing has worked for long, like you need to see some kind of specialist or get some kind of treatment every 2-3 weeks just to keep the pain at bay. That was number 2. So number 3 was your pain flares up regularly. So when you've been through a stressful event, your brain unconsciously remembers. And when you're reminded of that stressful event, it causes your symptoms to flare up. So there's a very good reason why people get the same type of pain again and again. And that is a telltale sign, again, that it does have an emotional cause. Number 4 was your pain is worse of an evening or in the morning or when you're just genuinely relaxed. So this is because during the pain is a healing symptom, and it occurs when our body is in a restful state. Number 5 there is that your pain is worse during periods of stress. So maybe you find that your pain's worse after you've had a really tough time at work, or you've had exams, or you've had a fight with your spouse or friend or partner. So you notice that your pain correlates with the level of stress in your life. Number 6 is you experience self-devaluation. You're hard on yourself. You beat yourself up. You blame yourself. You feel guilty for things. You don't know how to set boundaries. You push yourself to succeed, and you don't know how to slow down. These are all signs of self-devaluation, and self-devaluation is the root emotional cause of physical pain. And lastly, number 7, doctors and other healthcare providers are baffled as to why you're in pain, or perhaps conversely, they're saying, hey, you're just going to have to live with this. You're just going to have to learn to manage this pain because we can't find a solution. So there are the 7 things. And like I said, number 7 in particular, the reason why people are baffled is because most traditional healthcare people are designed to look at pain as a purely physical problem, and so therefore it has a physical solution. And this is why the results are so limited, because if there is an emotional component and it's going to get ignored, well then people are going to continue to experience symptoms again and again. So like I said, if you answered yes to, that's me, to one or more of these, that is a pretty good sign that the pain that you're experiencing has an emotional cause. And right now you have a choice. So you can kind of see now from this that the old way of dealing with pain is quite limited. And the reason it's limited is because it looks at things purely as a physical problem. And so therefore it must, like I said, have a physical solution. But one of the things that modern science is starting to really highlight is that things like pain and other kinds of chronic illnesses can have an emotional component. And a lot of people out there, I started this podcast saying that people out there believe, and a conversation I had with a friend recently saying, oh, my pain isn't physical. My pain's not emotional, it's physical. That is going to be something that if you choose to continue to believe it, even after answering yes to some of these questions, is going to keep you stuck, and it's going to keep you going around and around in circles trying to find a physical solution to an emotional problem. So you can continue to keep trying to find solutions and go to see new therapists and go try new experts and go do this newfangled hanging upside down sideways in the Himalayas to try and heal your pain. Or you can start to recognize that, hey, maybe my pain does have a stress link. Maybe my pain is the result of some emotional baggage that I'm holding on to, or some stressful events that I've experienced in the past. And then once you make that realization, once you become open to it, is start looking at doing the inner work. Start learning how to heal yourself. Start learning how to deal with the root emotional causes of your physical pain. And this is the new way, right? This is the way that Mind Body Masters operate. They understand that they can heal themselves by dealing with the root emotional cause. And one of the things that I see every day is that people who have spent years and years in pain, 20 years, 30 years, 40 years. We had one lady recently who was in pain and had fatigue for something like 60 years. Is once you deal with that root emotional cause, the body can start to heal. Because when you heal the mind, the body will follow. Instead of spending thousands of dollars and all of your time trying to heal the body and the body only, start looking at how you can heal your mind. Start looking at the root emotional cause. And I guarantee when you're able to make that shift from recognizing that your pain's not just physical, but it is emotional, that's when everything will start to change for you. That's when you'll start to heal, and that's when you can truly live a pain-free life. So guys, there you have it. There are the 7 tips. How did you go? Let me know. Jump on Instagram. I'm on Instagram at Jake_Currie, how my name's spelled, Currie. And every so often I'll jump live and I'll answer your questions and actually coach you through helping you make some of these connections, help you to see, is your pain physical or is it emotional? And if it is emotional, I'll help you to see the links between the mind and the body so that you can start to heal. It's been really fun. We've had people resolve some skin issues. We've had people resolve plenty of pain issues already just on these Instagram lives. So be sure to jump on over there to start learning how to heal and start learning more about this work. Also, if you want to take this work to the next level and you want to start to really understand the connection between the mind and the body when it comes to pain, there's people that get pain just on one side of their body, and they always have pain on the right side, and there is a reason for that. There's people that have pain that flares up regularly. There's a reason for that. There's people that have this weird unexplained pain that they can't seem to figure out. There is a reason for that. And right now on the website, mindbodymasters.com, we've got a free training which goes into this in a bit more detail, or a lot more detail, helping you to understand the connections between the mind and the body and how that causes pain, understanding the science that is Germany medicine and how that can help you to start healing from the inside out. So right now you can go along, you can check out that training completely for free and start learning more about how your mind is affecting your body, because that is the first step to learning how to get out of pain. If you're here and you've listened this far, chances are you've recognized that whatever symptom you're experiencing, there is an emotional cause there, and it's time for you to start dealing with that. So go over to the website, check out that free masterclass, and learn how you can start healing from the inside out. All right, guys, that's all for today. Thank you so much for staying tuned to the episode, and I hope you've helped self-diagnose yourself, and I hope you've started to realize whether your pain is physical or if it does in fact have an emotional cause. I'll see you on the next episode, and stay tuned. Thank you for listening to the Mind Body Masters podcast. Now, everyone has the ability to heal themselves with the right tools, information, and guidance. So if you have someone in your life that needs to hear this message, please share this episode with them so they too can start healing from the inside out. Now, if you've liked this episode and you think more people need to hear this message, please give us a great rating on iTunes because it helps more people to actually hear this message and realize the power that they have. Now, if you'd like more information and you'd like to access bonus video content and even have the ability to ask me questions directly, then head on over to my free Facebook group, the Mind Body Masters Heal Yourself from the Inside Out group. Or you can head on over to Instagram and slide into my DMs there. My handle is Jake_Curry. All right, guys, thank you so much again for listening, and I'll catch you again on the next episode.